Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, we recently bought and moved into our dream home, but only to find out that our next door neighbor Karen is a complete nightmare. While we were not home, she moved the property lines by replacing the existing fence and thus now claiming that she is the owner of our beautiful house and pool. Here is what happened. So I am a 30-year-old woman and I live with my husband of the same age and our two children who are 6 and 4 respectively. We got married about 8 years ago and lived in a small apartment for that entire time, but a handful of months ago we decided it was time to move into a place that would offer more space for our children to grow and play. We looked at a lot of different properties, but many of them would have cost a lot of money to renovate or did not have schools nearby. We didn't want to just pick the first good place that we saw because we intended for it to be our home for the foreseeable future. So, after weeks of looking around, we found the perfect place. The neighborhood was small, but there were a good amount of children in the area and it was within walking distance of an elementary school. It was a beautiful house with just enough space for all of us to fit comfortably, and we were excited to have more space to ourselves. The backyard also had a pool, which was not something we had been looking for, but it was definitely positive. We were worried that it would get scooped up by another family, so we may have put down an offer that was a bit larger than we really needed to. We had the money to cover it though, and this house was the best one we had seen at that point. Even the kids liked it, and they were not exactly thrilled at the prospect of moving away from friends and switching schools. There was a little bit of back and forth, and we found a few minor issues with the house that we wanted to be fixed before we agreed to anything, but the people selling it were eager to finalize everything, and our realtor sorted everything out for us. The whole process happened pretty quickly, and we were soon moving out of our cramped apartment and into a beautiful home. In the first few days, we had a number of neighbors stop by with welcoming gifts and greetings, and one even gave us the names of the best restaurants in the area. We were grateful to see so many friendly people, as we had hoped our kids would be able to make new friends that lived close to us. There were still some people we had not met though, namely, we had not been introduced to those who lived in the house directly on our left, so we decided to go over and greet them. We knocked on the door, and after a handful of seconds a middle-aged woman answered. Karen, I'm not interested in whatever you're selling. Me? Oh no, we are your new neighbors, we just moved into the house next door. Karen, oh, so it's your fault. Me, I'm sorry? Karen, my family was supposed to get that house. We had waited for years for it to go on the market, but I guess they decided to give it to the first people that came along. Me, oh sorry, I didn't know there had been other offers. Karen, we shouldn't have to make an offer since we already live in the neighborhood. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised that woman was always walking around with the witchiest attitude. Which, by the way, Ripe Stars, is kind of rich coming from this Karen. Anyway, me, well, we just wanted to say hi and introduce ourselves. Have a great day. I ushered my kids back home because the whole situation was incredibly uncomfortable. She was spouting off nonsense about us taking the home from her, while also bad-mouthing the previous owners, and I didn't want to deal with that. I assumed it was a one-off thing, so we returned home and laughed it off. It didn't take long for it to become clear to us that Karen had more to say on the matter, as we were out in the backyard one afternoon and she popped her head over the fence to talk to us. Karen, what made you guys decide on this house? Me, we really love the area and it's so close to the kids' school. Karen, there are other houses within the district, you know. Sure, but we like this place. Karen, well, I think you should sell it to me, at a discounted price of course. Me, what do you mean? Karen, I was supposed to get that house, not you, but they were so eager to get it out of there that they didn't take other offers into account. Me, I can understand how that would be frustrating, but we own the house now and we don't plan on selling it. You say that now, but why don't you think about it for a while and then get back to me? I think it's a fantastic offer. Me, I can say with full certainty that I won't be changing my mind. I'm sorry that you missed your chance at getting this house, but I would appreciate it if you stopped harassing us about this. She opened her mouth to say something else, but I was already turning my back on her to play with my children. I could hear her stomp back inside, and I attempted to figure out what was so good about our house that she didn't have on her own, but I failed to come up with anything besides the pool. It seemed silly to me that she would be so disruptive all because of a pool when she could have just one built in her own yard. We put it out of our heads and went on a short vacation a few weeks after that incident. We were gone a little less than a week since we were just going to the city and exploring some museums, shops and restaurants. By the time we got back, we were exhausted and I was ready to head inside and take a nap. Everything seemed fine and I started unpacking the car when finally my husband called for me to take a look at something in the backyard. I went up to the glass door to the yard and saw the most insane thing. The fence had been taken down and rebuilt so that our pool was on the side of our neighbors. I was completely shocked at the audacity to alter our property lines all because of a stupid pool. If they had asked nicely, I probably would have let them use it on certain days of the week, but after pulling a move like this, there was no way I would be that nice. My husband wanted to go over there and ream them out, but I told him to wait because I had a better idea forming at the back of my mind. I let Karen and her family enjoy the pool for a while, and I know they had more than a few parties because we could see and hear people in their backyard. I let a few weeks go by before ultimately calling up the authorities while the neighbors were in the middle of a big pool party. The police got the whole story from us about how we came back to find the fence changed to put the pool on their property and how they had been having parties and basically trespassing on our property. When asked why we did not report anything, we just made up some flimsy excuse about not wanting to start trouble, but in reality, I'd been trying to postpone it so that the pool would get in bad condition. So then the police went over and brought the neighbors in for trespassing. Karen was screeching, kicking and screaming, insisting that both the house as well as the pool belonged to her. They did not go to jail for long or anything, but they did have to pay a pretty hefty fine to get out and were ordered to do a significant amount of community service. They were forced to pay to have the fence rebuilt correctly, and they had to pay for the pool to be cleaned, the water and chlorine replaced and a filter to be replaced as well. All of that cost a fairly significant amount of money, which is why I had not gotten them in trouble sooner. I'm not sure what will happen from here on out, but I hope they've learned not to mess with us at least. And yeah, Ripe Stars, it seems if you got a nice house nowadays, and especially a pool in your backyard or garden or whatever, there is a high chance that an entitled neighbor might try to claim that your pool belongs to them. I don't know what's wrong with these entitled people. But anyway, if you enjoy these stories, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post a comment if you want to support my channel. Thank you so much. And the next one is titled Complaining About the Neighbor. So I am really torn about this. I, female 33, work fully remote and I'm a bit of a homebody, so I am usually in my apartment most of the time, either working or living my life as one does. Several months back, we had a family move in across the hall from us with a little girl around 2 or 3 years old. They moved in over the course of 2 weeknights, so there's lots of banging and shout talking in the halls between 10 and 12 at night, which is not really a good first impression for both myself and my roommate. Over the months they've been here, their little one has proven to be extremely vocal. While working, she will often scream bloody murder at the top of her lungs, loud enough that it feels like she is standing directly in my apartment. I've had people on calls with me while I am wearing headphones ask who is screeching in the background, and I gotta apologize and state that it is my neighbor's kid. Even at night I will hear her screaming all the way in my bedroom, which is the farthest room in my apartment from the front door. It's not so much "I'm scared" screaming, that would warrant a different call, or "Yay, I'm a toddler having fun" screaming. It's more like "I'm throwing a tantrum" screaming, and there are some days where it is near constant. I'll be doing laundry on the bottom floor, we're on top floor, and I can hear her all the way on the first floor just yelling and screaming clear as day. I have called and complained about them to our office. They also shout talk in the hallway to each other when they have visitors, and no carpet in the halls means it echoes and it is loud. Also, I know multiple other neighbors of mine both on the same floor and downstairs have called with complaints too. Yesterday I had called in with a bad migraine, and even in my room with the door closed I could hear her going full air raid siren even until 10 PM, and that just made my blood boil. It does not even sound like her parents tried to get her to calm down. I've spoken to my friends with kids about this and they've just told me to just keep it moving because parenting is hard. Personally, I am an aunt to 2 spectacular kids, so I get it, but I don't think I should have to deal with an out-of-control toddler who screams all day and night. My neighbors already have 2 violations for excessive noise, and I believe 1 more could get them evicted. And while the noise is definitely an issue, they've been warned about it multiple times by management. I should add that they don't speak English, or else I would have talked to them myself and interfere with both my work and downtime, and I cannot help but feel immensely guilty knowing I may get a little girl and her family evicted. But even as I write this post, she is banshees shrieking and has been on and off for close to half an hour. Would I be the a-hole if I filed another noise complaint, even though it may result in a family getting evicted? Edit, just making an edit to answer some questions. I've been seeing asked repeatedly on here, noise cancelling headphones are not always an option for me. My job requires I make calls and I cannot make and take calls with earplugs in. Also, I've had people tell me they can hear her over said headphones, which is embarrassing. My office space is in an open area, so I cannot really noise-proof my home office. It costs $1,000 to break my lease and I have a roommate to consider. I've also been in my apartment for 8 years and I've only been here for 4 to 5 months. The only thing getting broken around here are eardrums and my patience. I have no clue if she's on the spectrum or not, or if she has a disability. Also, I don't suspect abuse and I've not called CPS, however, a wellness check may be in order. Also, I cannot move my home office nor can I work at a friend's house, as I work in a department that works in confidential information, so I need to be at home or at the office. I also suffer from chronic pain, so work from home is easier on me mentally and physically, and also in my post when I said I'm an aunt, I get it, I mean that I understand that kids can be loud. I get it to a fault, not completely as I'm not a parent, but I understand. Thank you very much for all the feedback that has been given so far. Comment number 1, clearly you're not the only person who feels this way, as they have other noise complaints against them. If they've received those complaints and still done nothing to change the situation, then honestly they only have themselves to blame. I get that parenting can be extremely difficult and there may be issues that they are struggling to solve with their daughter, but in that case, they need to find somewhere to live where they are not causing all their neighbors problems. Maybe apartment living is not for them. You are definitely not the a-hole here. Comment number 2, not the a-hole, I get it, having and raising kids is not easy. And also younger ones throw tantrums, it's just part of life. But for it to be constant, it's intruding on everyone else's quiet enjoyment of their living space. I'm an uncle to a special needs kid, Downs and autism, and this is just not normal. And yeah, ripe stars, I would love to hear from you. What do you think about this story? Do you think that OP is the a-hole here or not, even if he would get them evicted? I'm very curious about what you think. The next one is titled Ableist Douchebag. When we were younger, my sister spent a lot of time in a wheelchair on and off. Obviously, my dad needed to be able to park in the parking space right outside our house and closest to the curb. This was because 1, he would not damage any cars when moving my sister from the car to the chair and vice versa. Number 2, it meant he did not have to carry my sister very far and could just load her out and in really easily. My dad has MS. Number 3, it made life easier, so anyway, our neighbor was a proper dick about it. He shouted at my dad every time he parked in this spot. They had this ongoing war for about 8 months. My dad took it all in his stride until this man called my sister C-slur word for disabled people. So my dad called the council to inquire about how much it would cost to get the space made into a permanent disabled spot. Then my dad paid the money and got the space repainted to be a disabled spot, which also meant if the neighbor parked in it and was caught, he would be fined. Then we moved house 3 weeks later. To my knowledge, 15 years later, the spot is still there. And the next one is a story of a Karen going way too far. So I work at a large grocery chain store in a well-to-do area. Our customers, while a lot may look like typical Karens, are actually really nice and amazing people. That being said, I was racking carts and I hear this lady on the phone behind me. I don't know why they come to this country, they can barely even speak the language. I'm behind one right now, he's probably a terrorist. I look in the window reflection and I can see that she is walking behind a young woman in a hijab who has a small kid. The young woman just put her son in a cart and I can see that she looks like she is about to cry. So I decide, screw it, I will take the hit for her. I spin around to Karen. Oi, I take bloody exception to that. Just because I'm Irish does not mean I am or ever was in the IRA. I look at both Karen and the young woman. Both were speechless and all Karen does is point at the young woman. So I continue me to the young woman. You saw that, didn't you? This lady just called me a terrorist. I might speak Gaelic and wear a Catholic cross. I might even be from Ireland. And damn it, I'm bloody proud, but I'm not a terrorist. At this point, my manager walks over to see what all the fuss is about. Me? This lady just called me a terrorist. Turns to a young woman. You heard her call me that too, right? My manager looks at the young woman and instantly catches on. He tells Karen that that kind of conduct is not okay in our store, no matter who it is directed at or why, and that she needs to leave. Karen, still speechless, just walks out. I turned to the young woman and I said, "I do apologize about the yelling, ma'am, but I'm proud of who I am. If you need anything while you're shopping, just let me or any of the co-workers know." The woman thanks me and pushes her cart away while sporting the biggest grin. My manager then makes the comment, "Entertainment tonight? $0. Teaching Karen a lesson about discrimination? $0. Seeing that young woman walking away sporting a big grin? Priceless." And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, props to OP for defending this young woman from this entitled awful Karen. Honestly, please, if you ever see such racist BS in public, also step in like OP. He did absolutely the right thing and taught Karen a lesson. And the next one is titled, "You will only be 5 minutes, guess you are waiting 2 hours." This happened a few years ago, back when I was a first-year heavy-duty mechanical apprentice. I had just working my shop's evening shift, 12:30 to 9 PM, because one of our other apprentices had just gone off to school, so I took his shift. Now, at this point we were understaffed, which is why I took his shift, so on this particular Friday evening, at around 6 PM, I was all alone at the shop except for one person up front in our parts department. Everyone else, including my boss, has gone home. Now, our yard is way too small for the amount of work we take in, so I had just spent about 15 minutes shuffling trucks around to clear a space so I could bring my job for the evening up to the shop so I could work on it. Right as I'm about to pull into the spot I just cleared, a customer pulls into the spot and parks. Not a big deal, this happens all the time, it annoys me but nobody ever stops it. So I get out and get his attention, asking him politely to move his truck. I have work to get done. He brushes me off, saying he just needs to grab one thing from parts and he will be out in 2 minutes. So more firmly I said, "Can you please move? There is available parking out front of the shop." Again he brushes me off and just walks inside. Now I am annoyed, but whatever, I go grab some water and start collecting an air jack and the stands I will need to do the brakes. After about 5 minutes he still has not moved, so I walk up front and see him just yapping with the parts guy. I remind him that he's in the spot I need and he waves me off and says something along the lines of, "The adults are talking, kid." So I say screw it and go back out, park my job right behind his truck and take the wheels off. I had 4 wheels of brakes to do, which would normally be about an hour, except during this I found a leaking wheel seal on one of the wheels, which added an hour. I get the wheels off, the truck is on stands and it's been about half an hour at this point when he walks back outside and sees what I have done. He starts complaining about how he has things to do and why the F would you block me in, to which I looked at him and said, "I have stuff to do too," and went back to work and ignored him. The reason I didn't just park somewhere else is because everyone and their mother drops their trucks off Friday night for weekend servicing, so the yard was packed. I had already rearranged it to make a space for me and there was free parking up front that I had informed him about and he still parked in my way. He ended up coming back a few days later and whining to my boss, but once I explained my side, my boss just told me not to do that again, but admitted it was pretty funny. And the next one is titled, "Block my drive, you will be late for work." This happened about 25 years ago in the UK when I had bought my first house. We had a driveway that was side by side next doors. Each drive was long enough to park 2 cars tandem, so whichever car was parked first could not get out unless the one behind was moved first. Next door was also a young couple, with the man being a typical boy racer of that time and often had his mates around to watch the football and have a beer. I'm a big football fan too, so never minded the noise. However, I returned home from work one day to find one of his mates' cars parked in my driveway. I knocked politely on their door to ask them to move. They were watching football in the room right beside the door with all the windows open and were quite loud and rude, telling me to F off. I thought I recognized the car in my drive, and when I looked through the window confirmed it was owned by someone I used to work with. So I called him out by name, which caught him unaware, asked him again to move it, but he wanted to be a macho in front of his mates and told me again to F off. Cue petty revenge. I simply left, parked my car bumper to bumper with his, making it impossible for him to leave in his car. Put my music on and simply waited until I heard their door open about an hour later. It was bliss to hear a few expletives and then a knock on my door asking me to move as he had to leave for work. My simple response was, F off, I'm watching football. He left on foot and came meekly asking for his car the following morning. And ripe stars, since seemingly these disputes about parking spots are so common in Reddit stories, I'm wondering, did you ever have any parking disputes with your neighbors? Please let us know in the comments. I finally stick it to my neighbor for stealing property. My neighbor removed my fence without my permission and put in a new one between our properties, except he put it 2 feet over the property line onto my property. I've been working with the county for like the last 8 months to get it rectified. Luckily he never got a permit and got caught lying to them that the fence was always there. Guess he didn't know they take satellite pictures every year of the yards to easily verify this type of stuff. Tomorrow he will finally get the official notice of the violation and the surprise that he will have to pay to move the fence, the fines for not getting a permit and the fines for ignoring past notices. He is beyond a jerk, so it just feels great to know that karma has caught up to this adult bully. Why is he a jerk? He took grass killer to my lawn, removed my fence without permission, put up a fence on my property, let 30 yard bags worth of leaves fall onto his yard, and then waited weeks until they all eventually migrated to mine so that I would pick them up. Also introduced him to my wife and then immediately called her the wrong name, Margaret to Marks sort of thing, random name for anonymity. Asked me if I have any projects coming up. I told him, I'm going to replace my driveway with concrete. His response, you cannot afford that. We also are planning on putting in a new fence. This is before all of this fence madness began. His response, that is what the last owner said. What was the condition of the fence? Older fence that did need to be replaced. It was not rotten or anything, typical old neighborhood kind of fence. We had just moved into the house like 3 months prior and I told him we were planning on replacing it. Did you bring this to them before going through the county? No, I don't think they deserve that luxury considering everything they have put us through and how they have acted. If it was anyone else I would have talked to them first, but he is a raging a-hole. Update, I purchased and installed 3 wireless cameras. They got issued the "You are screwed" notice. After they saw that glorious notice in their door, they immediately came over like some pissed off hornets. They were yelling at me about how I called the county and how they spent so much money on the fence. They also raged about how they removed my POS fence for free, blah blah blah. Fence removal was part of their fence installation cost. They were trying to act like they were doing me a huge favor. Long story short, after they ranted and lost their mind for a bit, I just told them it is out of my hands and that they have to deal with the county and that I didn't force them to put up a fence without my permission on my property and without a permit. Told them to take some accountability and to please get off my property. I'm sure they are plotting to get me somehow, but for now it sure does feel good to pull the carpet out from under them. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.